Hmm.
Okay, sir, we can start.
Okay. Okay. Just give me a second. Very good afternoon. Welcome to this edition of your IGNO class. Actually, I'll be teaching or I'll be lecturing on or I'll be delivering a talk on cultural influence versus diaspora in Southeast Asia. I'm Dr. Mahalingam. I'd like to thank Dr. Sahu for inviting me and also giving an opportunity to deliver a lecture on cultural influence versus diaspora in Southeast Asia because basically I did my PhD on Indian diaspora in Malaysia. So this topic is very close to my heart. It's a very interesting topic, and also it's very familiar to all of us. This is not a new, it's well-known fact. The cultural influence of India on Southeast Asia is very much studied and also well-known, historically well-known for many of us. Having said that, so I like to, I'll be giving you overview about this actually, because given the shortage of time and otherwise it's a big topic and it needs a lot of time to go deeper and speak about, to provide insights about Southeast Asia and and India's influence on Southeast Asia. So let me just start. So this is the map of Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia has 11 countries. You can see in the map that is Myanmar, Vietnam, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, Philippines, Brunei, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, East Timor. So it has 11 countries. Okay, this region has 11 countries in earlier period, and also historians they call it Greater India, because of Indianization of Southeast Asia. That's why it's called, there's another term historians they try to use to understand the cultural influence, Indian cultural influence over Southeast Asia. That is called Indianization or Greater India. Okay, Greater India is the term also commonly accepted among the scholars. So let us see what are the learning objectives of this course. After studying this unit, you would be able to know about Southeast Asia in general as a region, and also understand the origin of Indian emigration to Southeast Asia and their cultural influence in the region, and also to comprehend the cultural base of Indian emigration and the spread of Buddhism and Hinduism in the region. Describe and also this course describes the cultural exchanges between through trade and commerce between India and Southeast Asia in pre-colonial period, and also the influence of diaspora over this region. Okay, so let me introduce this topic. See, India and Southeast Asia has a very close cultural traits. The culture of both these regions are very similar in many respects. So that made historians and scholars to study the impact of the Indian culture over this region. Okay, there are various studies by various scholars from abroad and also from India. They've studied about the cultural impact of India over Southeast Asia. Because why there is similarity? Because we have a shared historic ties, culture, knowledge, which are very common in these two regions. And also, see, the cultural exchanges took place between these two regions through trade and commerce. And also the various kingdoms in Southeast Asia, they adopted to Indian way of, political system and also social cultural system. That's why For example, you must be knowing countries like Thailand, Malaysia, and also Vietnam, Cambodia. They have similarities, cultural similarities with India. In Cambodia, Thailand, Indonesia, Burma, today many symbolic remnants of Indian influence are clearly visible in their art, culture, and civilization. The footprints of Indian civilization can be seen in the art forms, in architectural form, and also in various performing arts, in languages, Southeast Asian languages where you can find the Indian influence. We'll discuss one by one and how it happened, and also how it happened and how it is being maintained today, and also what are the studies which are available on this impact of Indian culture over Southeast Asia. The cultural influence gradually become predominant among these countries. Over the years, relationship between India and Southeast Asian countries has become stronger. So India has been a soft power. India never conquered any countries by using warfare or something, but India has won many countries through its culture. That's why India has a very strong soft power, because Indian society is a very, you know, culturally, India is a civilizational society. India is a civilizational society because of the Indian culture is very rich, okay, because of its historicity or its antiquity, okay. There has been always cultural innovation in India. So it's called civilizational society. India is a civilizational society because we have produced our own civilization, which has spread far and wide. But Southeast Asia is very, given its geographical proximity, okay, and also trade and commerce connections, which led to the spread of Indian culture in this region. So before going to that, let I have just divided my lecture into three or four parts. Now let us discuss the profile of Southeast Asia. Okay, what is Southeast Asia? Okay, what does it mean to us? The region of Southeast Asia is situated on the east of the Indian subcontinent and south of China. Southeast Asia consists of 11 countries, which is generally divided into mainland and islands. There are so many islands. The mainland, which consists of Burma, Thailand, Malaysia, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and also other islands, Philippines and East Timor. Okay, so these are the islands. And also Southeast Asian countries, which are very vibrant in terms of economic, prosperity, and also cultural, exchanges between various countries. Actually, Southeast Asia is a melting pot of culture. Various cultural flows came to the region. So there's a mixer. There's a process of syncretism in the Southeast Asian culture. That's what we are going to see in the course of a presentation. An important feature of contemporary Southeast Asia is the presence of Indian minorities in every country of its region. So, Southeast Asia has a vibrant Indian minority, particularly countries like in Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and also Philippines. These countries where we have significant presence of Indian minorities. The establishment of early commercial and economic ties between India and countries of Southeast Asia led to initial settlement of Indians. See the first, Indian migration to these countries. Okay, Indian migration to these countries happened because of, first is what, you can divide into three phases: pre-colonial phase, colonial phase, post-colonial phase. Okay, pre-colonial phase, mainly trade communities. They migrated from India. Trade communities and the priestly class, the monks, the Buddhist monks, they migrated to this region. Pre-colonial migration. Colonial migration, basically laborers. During British and Dutch period, laborers migrated from India to Southeast Asia, and also traders, but mainly laborers. And post-colonial migration, you have skilled professionals and also unskilled laborers. They keep migrating to this region. Okay, so there are three phases you are very familiar in terms of migration pattern. So pre-colonial period is marked by trade and commerce. The establishment of early commercial and economic ties between India and countries in Southeast Asia led to initial settlement. So in the pre-colonial period, the settlements started coming up in the various parts of Southeast Asian region. Okay, which consists of 11 countries, of course. So now, but in those days, there were no clear-cut segregation of 11 countries. Okay, this is a region. It's called a region, or you can say that it's a subcontinent kind of situation. There is no uniformity in terms of social, political, economic prowess among Indians in Southeast Asia. Okay, I mean, Indian diaspora is very diverse in nature in terms of caste, class. So the socio-economic profile also very different from countries to countries. Indonesia, traditionally the Sikhs, the Sindhis, the Tamils are engaged in trade activities. Okay, in various in sectors they are dominating. I mean, these migrants, the Sikhs, Hindis, and Tamils, they went, during the colonial period and also particularly, the colonial era. That's what, you have to make a note of this. But see, my argument here is three kinds of migration pattern: pre-colonial, colonial, post-colonial. So this cultural influence started from pre-colonial, okay, to present times. Okay, that there is a strong Indian cultural influence over Southeast Asian countries. That is the point you have to keep in mind. See, the recent trends indicate that the present Indian migration includes professionals holding senior positions in local multinational companies. So that's what now the skilled professionals are moving in to this region in large numbers. So I'm basically now we are discussing the profile of Indians in these countries. In case of Malaysia, the political, economic, social status of Indians versus Chinese and local Malays is not satisfactory because of nationalization policy, all that. Singapore is the only country in all Southeast Asia which has, where Indians are well represented in all the sectors, like in public sector and private sector, because of meritocracy system which they have in Singapore. A poor section of Indians and remnants of the trading community were left behind, forming the present Indian diaspora in Myanmar. Okay, Myanmar, it was known as Burma in those days, but once the Indians were very dominant in that country, but after decolonization, Burma followed nationalization policy. Because of that, many Indians they came back, and only few are left behind, and they are forming part of Indian diaspora there. So, as I pointed out, every country has Indian diaspora, but Malaysia has the highest number, followed by Singapore, Indonesia, and other countries, Thailand, other countries. Okay, now coming to the origin of Indian immigration, historical background. So I think that's what I told you. Indian links with Southeast Asia can be traced back to the prehistoric times. Even the link between these two regions are traced to the prehistoric times because of geographical proximity or connectivity. Large parts of the present Southeast Asia remain under intensive Indian influence in terms of political, social, and cultural value systems. So, Southeast Asian region is very much influenced by Indian social, political, cultural systems. That's what. So, reference to the Indian settlements in Southeast Asia appears to be in 6th century BC. The great Indian epics like Ramayana, Mahabharata mention about this region like Swarnatipa and Yavadiva. Yavadipa, it means, for example, Swarnatipa means land of gold. Okay, Yavadipa means the land of barley, something like that. So it's among the seafaring people of east coast of India, the countries of Lower Burma, Malay Peninsula were known as lands of gold. And it seems certain from at least 6th century BC, we have some records, historical records, which shows that Indian traders were sailing to these lands down through the islands in search of gold and tin. Basically, Malaysia is known for tin, export. So these countries are connected by trade since prehistoric times. The region was, intertwined with Indian culture to such an extent that Europeans used to refer to further India or greater India. That's why I told you, European scholars, given its Indian cultural influence over this region, they call it Greater India or Further India. Okay, uh, even folklore singers and artists played a very important role in popularizing Indian culture in this region. Um, See, first, the traders went there, they made trade settlements. Then gradually, the kingdoms, the ruling elites in that region, they welcomed, traders, and by trade or through trade connection, then they invited Indian priests and monks, which who influenced the political system, cultural system over there. The Hindu priests, the Brahmins, the Buddhist monks, they went along with traders to this region to spread the Indian ideology, the Indological ideas, the Indological ideas. See, that's what the artists who popularized, they were called Dalangs and contributed to the process of adaptation of these epics originating outside their country by adding or changing them to make them more contextual localized. Even Ramayana, Mahabharata, these were adapted to local languages. It became contextualized. The folklore artists, they popularized these epics among the indigenous people of this region. There was a beginning of formation of new texts like Seri Rama, Malaysian adaptation of Ramayana, and Ram Kher, Ramayana Khmer in Cambodia. Okay, so these texts were adapted to local languages and it was popularized by the folklore artists over there. The historical economic linkage between these regions included the voyages of Southeast Asia by Indian traders. These countries became I came under influence of Indian culture because these countries were located on the sea route, I mean trade routes. I mean that's called spice route, spice and silk routes. That's why Indian traders were frequently, moving in and moving out of this trade post of this region. That's where that's a opening point for spread of Indian culture. Yet India's cultural conquests were peaceful and without any forced conversion. Okay, there was no colonization or violence, okay, or subjugation. That's what. So Indian culture spread very peacefully through, the cultural agents like the Brahmin priests and the Buddhist monks. They carried the ideas, Indological ideas, to the Southeast Asia, the idea of karma, the idea of moksha, the idea of nirvana, which spread to this region. I mean, the spiritual ideas, the Indian spiritual legacy, which started spreading in this region. The Indians who went there did not go to rule, nor they had any interest in controlling them. Societies of Southeast Asia remained politically independent. Okay, but I think only the Cholas, they conquired a part of Malaysia that's called Gadaram. It's a region in Malaysia, North Malaysia, and also, in Indonesia, Sumatra, they conquired it. But no other Indians, they just politically conquered this region. That is what you have to keep in. But there's a cultural invasion. That's what happened in this region. Though during the pre-colonial times, Indians were not seen as outsiders. Okay, they never seen Indians as outsiders. They were here to, to capture power. Nothing. There was no feeling like that. So they were accepted by them. Okay, because of that, there is a cultural syncretism between indigenous culture and Indian culture, and now it's called Southeast Asian culture. Okay, so the cultural base of immigration. That's what pre-colonial immigration was, not economic, or I mean, it was economic as well as cultural. That's what I should put it. According to me, there was an economic aspect also as well as cultural aspect. But some scholars, they say it's a cultural. It was a cultural basis of immigration. But according to me, both economic as well as cultural. The syncretic culture of Southeast Asia is evident in Buddhism being practiced in Hindu temples in Cambodia, Muslim wedding rituals and dress in Malaysia, which are based on Hindu rituals and attire. For example, Garuda, the vehicle of Hindu god Vishnu, is the name of Indonesian Airlines, and other like Naha, Kuber, which are very prevalent in both Hindus and Buddhist cultures, can be seen, or it is all carved in many sculptures in Southeast Asian temples. A Mahabharata monument depicting Krishna and Arjuna riding a chariot pulled by 11 horses is placed in the central park of Jakarta. So Southeast Asia observed and retained the past Indian influence in a very distinctive way. That's what I told you, still they carry forward the Indian legacy somehow in their rituals, in their festivals. So the remnants of Indian influence can be seen. But after, a decolonization, these countries were, because of nationalism, they're trying to, they wanted to become more Islamic or whatever, the religion they have today. But still you can find the remnants of Indian culture in their political and social system. More direct evidence of Indian influence on the arrival of Buddhist monks during the first 4 centuries is found in the images of Buddha belonging to second, third centuries, which you can find in Thailand, Chamba in Cambodia, and also Sumana, Java, and Celebes in Indonesia, these places. So Hinduism, Buddhism spread, in this part of before Islam came to in Southeast Asia. Okay, which but Hinduism, Buddhism coexisted with the indigenous culture or indigenous religious practices of the Southeast Asian region. The people of Southeast Asia, particularly the rulers, the Indian influence mean the introduction of developed culture based upon the art of writing, the Sanskrit language and literature, the cult of Brahmanism and Buddhism, Hindu mythology, distinctive artist styles and techniques also, Hindu conception of monarchy, the courts of law, and methods of administration. These are all came from India, so they adopted from India. So this is very important point you have to keep in mind. Then commerce and culture were the two main important factors responsible for spread of Indian culture there. So mainly commerce and culture. I mean commerce and also trade and commerce. Mainly these are the medium by which the Indians culture started spreading in this part of the world. Indian influence was visible in terms of language. The Sanskrit scripts are the first form of writing which have reached Southeast Asia. Okay, the alphabets they started including Sanskrit. For example, in Malay language, they say adat, achar. These terms they use it. Still, they use it. A large number of ancient inscriptions which have been discovered in this part of the region are in Sanskrit. Okay, so the Indian, the Thai language particularly has a lot of Sanskrit influence. The influence of India can also be felt in the food and flavors of Southeast Asia cuisines, particularly Southeast Asian cuisines are very much influenced by the Indian cultural practices and also Indian cuisine. So you see this, the spread of Hinduism in South, you can see this map. I think the map shows that how Hinduism spread in how and still in many countries there are Hindus who are practicing different forms of Hinduism, So this is the temple which is in Indonesia, which has a lot of Indian influence. Okay, and also this is also is a stupa, Buddhist stupa, which are found in Indonesia. This also one of the pictures which I could get it for your presentation. Okay, so this kind of influence, you can see the Indian influence can be seen in architecture, art forms, rituals, even administration. Okay, and also, as I told you, in spiritual, particularly in spirituality. Okay, still they adopt to, they follow the Indian, mythologies, all that. So Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva were worshipped together with satellite gods and goddesses. Image of the gods combined together, it's called Trimurti. The image of the composite gods Shiva and Vishnu were found in Java and Cambodia. Hinduism spread throughout Southeast Asia. The Hindu empires, such as those centered in Angkor and Javanese complex of Prambanan, which is in Indonesia. I told you, this temple is called Prabanan Temple, Trimurti Temple in Indonesia. Okay, which is combination of Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Okay, today the only sizable indigenous Hindu community in Southeast Asia is found in the Indonesian province of Bali. Where you find more Hindu. I mean, the Hindu practices are very much still there in the island of Bali today. The physical remains of the Southeast Asia's Hindu past are often visible. Today, the Vaishnava temple of oldest layers of Angkor Wat in Cambodia, the Sai temple at Mai Zone in Vietnam, Wat Po in Laos, the temples to Vishnu, Shiva, and many associate deities at Prambanan in Indonesia. So these are the remnants of Indian civilization in the Southeast Asian region. Okay, then you have in mainland Southeast Asian states except Vietnam, the dominant, for example, in terms of Buddhism, the world Buddhism spread in Southeast Asia because the Emperor Asoka sent missionaries to various parts of the world. So Hinayana practice, the Theravada practice, which is very popular in this region, not the Mahayana practice, which is more Chinese based. Okay, but this Theravada practice more Indianized. So this practice is very much, prevalent in the Southeast Asia. Okay, the trade links with Southeast Asia brought Hinduism and later Buddhism to the region. The port cities emerged as well as cities where religious or ceremonial centers. Okay, I told you the traders first went, then they made trade settlement, then later the priest, the Hindu priest, the Brahmins particularly, and also the Buddhist monks, they went to this region to spread the Indian culture or Indian civilization, which led to setting up temples, and also the court systems were based on the Indian political model. Okay, so this is what, the way they are the agents to spread the Indian culture in the Southeast Asian region. Then colonial migration, basically labor migration, they also carried the Indian culture. They put up temples in various parts of the Southeast Asian regions, and still they are the best testimonies for spreading or retaining Indian culture there. Okay, then see, the traders, they went there and they established contact with the ruling elites there. Because of that, they agreed to build temples. That's what Angkor Wat in Cambodia was built in 12th century. It was basically a Vishnu temple. Okay, the temple complex is the largest religious structure in the world today. Okay, but this temple has also Buddhist influence. Later, Buddhism spread there, so it has also got Buddhist influence also there. Okay, that's a point you have to keep in mind. So cultural exchange through trade and commerce, that's what the main thing you have to understand. How Indian culture spread there because of this trade. Okay, the traders were the main uh, player in terms of spreading Indian culture and civilization there. The renowned historian quotes attributed the phenomenon of early emigration of Indians and the spread of Indian influence in Southeast Asia to an intensification of Indian trade. Okay, that starts from early Christian era. Okay, so he says that's what he agrees. He argues that Indian culture is spread mainly through traders. Southeast Asia was particularly attractive to Indian mercantile class. They named faraway lands as Swarna Bhumi or the land of gold, Tokola, land of cardamoms, and also Narikli Deep, land of coconuts. Okay, they follow two routes. Okay, one is via Bay of Bengal, the other one is from Coromandel coast, from deep south of India, from South India. These two routes by which they reach Southeast Asian countries. Okay, and the next coming to Hindu priests and Buddhist monks accompanied mercantile class and assumed a leading role in spreading the message of Indian thought and culture. Okay, that is what I told you also to the entire Southeast Asian region. Since they had no political ambition and were living in hermitages and ashrams, the local people welcomed them. In medieval times, from 6th to 14th century, there existed a great maritime empire based in Indonesian islands of Java and Sumatra. Even many artists from India, they went to the Southeast Asia, for example, from Kalinga, the modern day Odisha. From there, many artists went there to work in this temple, Angkor temple. So you can see the similarity between Konarak temple and the Angkor temple. There are various scriptures which look similar in these two temples. So many Indian artisans came to work temporarily in the courts and were from Kalinga, modern day Orissa. They helped in building great temples and monuments. Okay, that's what. Then this Funan civilization. Funan is a very popular port city which is situated on the Mekong River. Okay, there, the historians they found Sanskrit inscriptions found in Funan, okay, which shows that adoption of Indian languages and scripts, indicating the extent of Indian cultural influence on the elites, ruling elites of an intellectual class. Funan is a port city, okay, which is located in Cambodia, the present Cambodia. Okay, so there the historians discover Sanskrit inscriptions. Okay, then Sri Vijaya Empire from 7th century to 13th century, which is in island of Sumatra. I mean, the present day Indonesia played a very important role in facilitating trade between India and Indonesia and China. The Indian merchants and scholars visited very often to Sri Vijaya's ports, contributing to the spread of Indian culture, religion, and ideas. The influence of Indianized culture in Sri Vijaya is evident in the architecture of temples in Chandi Mura, takus, and inscriptions found in old Malay language using Pallava script of derived from ancient Tamil Nadu. Okay, so Sri Vijaya Empire, Funan civilization was all influenced by Indian culture and civilization. Then followed by Chola dynasty's maritime empire. The Chola dynasty of South India, particularly Rajendra Chola and Rajaraja Chola, they established a maritime empire and they won some parts of Southeast Asia. But they didn't establish any kingdom, but just they conquered and they left behind. Indian traders and settlers known as Chindians, they established contact in this part of the region. They spread the Indian cultural practices, language, and religion. Then coming to Borobudur and Prambanan temples in Indonesia, 9th century Christian era. The Borobudur temple complex in central Java, Indonesia, and the nearby Prambanan temple compound all shows that Indianization. The largest Buddhist monument in the world, Borobudur, reflects Indian architectural styles, Buddhist iconography, indicating the profound influence of Indian culture and religious beliefs in this part of the region. Okay, these are the standing testimonies which speaks about the spread of Indian culture and civilization. Then religious syncretism, which is very much, visible in the Southeast Asian region. Hinduism and Buddhism spread across Southeast Asia, which coexisted with the indigenous culture and folk religions. The blending of Indian religious practices with folk traditions gave rise to unique syncretic practices and rituals. The worship of Hindu deities like Vishnu, Shiva, and Durga alongside indigenous spirits and ancestral cult, shows the synthesis of Indian culture along with the local indigenous system. This syncretism is evident in temple architecture, religious iconography, and religious ceremonies. And also the performing arts. Performing arts in Southeast Asia is very much influenced by the Indian dance forms like Bharatanatyam, Kathak, Odissi. Okay, this region, for example, they follow similar steps, dance forms of the Indian art forms. For example, Thai classical dance and Cambodian classical dance called Apsara dance is very much influenced by Indian dance forms. Musical instruments including sitar, tabla, mridangam also found their way into Southeast Asian musical traditions, enriching local music styles and performances. Then coming to iconography and symbolism, The iconography and symbolism of Hinduism and Buddhism found expression in Southeast Asian architecture, religious rituals, Indian deities and motifs, were adopted, integrated with the Southeast Asian region's beliefs and traditions, giving rise to unique syncretic expression of spirituality. Okay, so this is what so the imprint of Indian culture is very much visible in the art forms, in architectural form, in religious practices, rituals, even social, political, cultural system of Southeast Asia. That's why, the scholars, you know, they called this region as Greater India or Further India or Indianization of Southeast Asia. But now, after colonialism, you can see the remnants of Indian culture and civilization because of the policy of nationalism. Ethno-religious nationalism has you know, led to what the reaffirmation of their indigenous culture and also Islamic culture over the Indian culture and civilization. For example, in the case of Malaysia, the prime ministers, the successive prime minister, they're trying to, what do you call, de-label Malaysia as part of the greater India by, promoting Malay-based, Islamic-based cultural systems and belief system and other practices. So this is what happening today. But Southeast Asia was very much influenced by Indian culture and Indian civilization because of its geographical proximity and also strong trade connections. That's what India is always soft power. In Indians, even I think you must know this. Asoka, after Kalinga War, he said, "We should win the world not by sword, but by culture." So that's what India has been trying to do ever since. So our culture, Indian culture, spread in this region very peacefully and without any, violence or without subjugating other cultures. So Indian culture coexisted with the local traditions and also local belief systems, so which led to syncretism in the region. That's why Southeast Asia is a melting pot of culture. That's what you see, different cultures or cultural flows into this region. So there is a lot of syncretism in every aspect, in political system, in economic system, and cultural system. So this is what and also this migration, the continuous migration, also having strong influence on this region. The Indian migrants, for example, the Chettiars and other traders, they put up the temples in various parts of this region to sustain the Indian culture and civilization. The new migrants also, they're trying to influence Southeast Asian cultural systems and beliefs in the being present there. For example, Diwali is a very popular festival in Singapore and Malaysia and these countries. Even Navaratri, all these festivals are very quite popular, which are trying to sustain the Indian cultural system along with the local traditions and systems. So this is what I want to cover today. So now it's time. The floor is open for question and answer session. Still, we have 10 minutes to ask questions. 15 minutes, in fact. So your doubts, your queries are welcome now. Any questions, Feroz? Any questions from participants? We have Basir, Dominicos, somebody else. For example, Sanjeev Kumar, Swadesh, Vinod Subramanian. You can unmute and ask your questions. Any questions?
No, sir. Your lecture is always inclusive and every topic and every thing will be covered.
Yeah. And let me know who's speaking with me.
I'm Swadesh.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good
I am
afternoon.
Bashir.
Okay, Basir, tell me, yes.
Yes, it was a very beautiful lecture. Actually, I just wanted to add one point. We talked about the Chola Empire. The
Yeah,
Indian Ocean at that particular point of time was even named as colloquially as Chola Lake.
yes,
It was the
Chola Lake.
influence of Cholas.
Yes, yes. I agree with you. Yes, you're right. Because of Chola Empire was a maritime empire. They engaged in maritime activities. They started having strong trade, particularly Sumatra region, Sumatra and Malay archipelago. This region was very much linked with. That's what there was a community called Chembian in Chola Empire. They were trading, in particularly Puhar, Kavaripumbattinam was a port town from where there was an intensification of trade activities between Southeast Asia and Rome also. So that's what Cholas they encouraged, they promoted, maritime trade. Yeah, thank you for this point. Bringing this Chola Lake. Yeah, it was considered to be Chola Lake because of the trade traffic between various parts of the world and Chola Empire. Yes, Basi.
Thank you, sir.
Sanjeev Kumar has
Sir,
raised his hand. Yeah,
sir, good afternoon, sir.
good
Sir,
afternoon.
sir, we are discussing about the Indian immigration to Southeast Asia, particularly.
Yeah,
So, and the culture and intermingling and all.
yeah.
And I want to ask, a question whether any immigration kind of thing is happening now from Southeast Asia to India, and its, effects on our culture and all.
I mean, from Southeast Asia to
To
India.
India, yes, sir.
Okay. I don't actually.
Just a reverse of the kind of what we studied now, right now.
Yeah, but I don't think so. It's happening, but still, from India to Southeast Asia, it's happening. But maybe not at a greater scale. Maybe they come for studies, for example. No, many
Yes,
people come. Many people come to see Buddhist sites in Bodh Gaya and also Nalanda University. Now, maybe they will welcome scholars from Vietnam, Cambodia, all these countries. Even from Thailand, they might come, but they're just coming as a tourist, but not as a migrants,
okay, okay,
to work in India, or that's what you have to understand that aspect. But
yes,
Indians are going as migrants to work in Thailand or Vietnam or Singapore, Malaysia, Brunei. These countries you find a lot of Indians, particularly semi-skilled, unskilled laborers. Even professionals are going to Singapore only, but not to other countries because of language and also, other cultural barriers.
sir.
Uh, but reverse migration is very less from Southeast Asia to India. Maybe they come as tourists, but not as economic migrants. Not as
Okay,
economic migrants. Yes.
sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
Mm. Then I think somebody also raised hand. Uh, See, it's a very interesting topic. It's a historical topic, the cultural spread of India to this region, it's a basically historical topic. Historians have been working on this. Even Southeast Asian countries, they are really also researching on this aspect. But now, these countries, I told you, after colonialism, because of nationalism, the ethno-religious nationalism have led to, remove this kind of Indian impact on their culture. That's what they're trying to do, like, but the present Indian government is trying to revive that cultural linkages, by through his embassy. Indian embassy is also promoting and this Indian cultural linkages in this region. That's what now it's happening. But let's see. But there's it's a historical fact. Even these countries, the new policies are trying to remove that, the Hindu past, but still, you can't hide the truth, so it's all recorded now. Yeah. Any other doubts? Binod, Sudesh, Sudesh was trying to ask something, but somehow he could not ask me the question. Sudesh, yeah, it's time for you to open up.
Yeah, sir, no doubts. But recently I went to Malaysia.
Okay,
There is
okay.
many names related to Indian names, Bhumiputra,
Yeah, yes.
other names of the places,
Mm, yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Malay language and Thai language is very much influenced by Sanskrit words. Sanskrit impact is there. Even the dress habit, the rituals in Indonesia also. Many Indian cultural practices are still, being practiced, but now it's all being sidelined because I told you nationalism, ethno-religious nationalism, which are preventing that. Yes. Anybody else? Sanjeev, anything? Bidot, Subramanian, can you open up?
Yeah, it was very informative, sir. No specific questions, but I've been to Singapore and Malaysia about like almost 20 years ago.
Okay.
It was a really good experience. Especially I think in the train stations, they even announce in Tamil. I mean, after Malay, the second they announce in Tamil as so it's a widely accepted language, I believe, in that part of the world.
Because of that historicity, they want to, because even there is a resistance for that, but still the Singapore government is very adamant to keep it because of the contribution of Tamils and Chinese and Malay for the development of Singapore. That's why they still retain that, heritage. That's what they are doing it. But there is a lot of pressure from the new migrants to take it off because because the old migrants are now becoming less and less in number. So that is what there is a politics behind this kind of language politics also is there in Singapore now. So, but mainly the Sikhs, the Sindhis and Tamils were the main traders. Even Tamil Muslim communities also played a very important role in building up the Southeast Asian culture. You must be knowing it in Singapore, in Malaysia, these countries, the Muslim traders like Lapai and other, they are very much played a very important role in building these countries, Singapore, Malaysia, and all. So apart from the Hindu past, even the Islamic traders also played a very important role in, but maybe later. That's what the first is Hindu impact, next is Buddhist impact, then Islamic impact in Southeast Asia. So that's what I told India is a civilizational society. India has been, India is known for its heritage and also the rich cultural heritage, the spirituality. India is looked upon because of spirituality, not for the materialistic aspect of development, because India is, Indian culture gives no meaning to your spiritual leanings. See, human mind has two aspects: material aspect and spiritual aspect. The Western countries will answer your material aspect. India can answer the spiritual quest of the human beings. That's what the India's main contribution to the world. So that is what you have to understand. Human mind seeks two kind of interest. One is spiritual interest, other one is material interest. But as Buddha said, we have to follow the middle path. Then only your life will be at peace. Balancing the material aspect and also spiritual aspect. If you are too ascetic in life, then you also will be suffering. If you are too materialistic in life, you'll be suffering. That's what Buddha said. You have to follow the middle path, balancing spiritual quest as well as your material quest. Then your life will be at peace. That is the message India gives to the world through Buddha. Yes. Anything else? I got some messages also in the group. Let me check the message. Excellence, any ethnic conflict in Southeast Asia with Indians? Yes, in the past, there was no ethnic conflict, but now, as I told you, for example, in Myanmar, in countries like Malaysia, they have ethnic conflicts because of, the local communities, after coming to power, because of majority, they are trying to suppress the minorities, so that there's a conflict, ethnic conflict, not in Singapore or other countries, because where in Singapore is an open society, but Malaysia, Myanmar, there are ethnic conflicts in the past and also in the present as well. You understand about Myanmar politics, it's a very complex one. In Malaysia also, the Malay majority politics also, impeaching upon the interests of the minorities, especially Chinese and Indians. So there are ethnic conflicts, but they're trying to negotiate, with the majority culture, and they try to find a common ground. That's what. There are ethnic conflicts. That's the point I want to make here.
Okay, sir.
So anything else? So can we wind up, or any more questions? So this you have to read. Please see the reference. You have to read. There's a book, Indians in Southeast Asia, by Chandu, A. Mani, and all these people have written. Also, if you want to read the history of Southeast Asia, you should read quotes. So you'll get a clear picture how the Indian culture has spread. That's why I told you, mainly traders. The traders, they carried the Indian culture, but it was really spread by the Brahmin priest and also the Buddhist monks. They were the agents to spread the Indian culture in Southeast Asia. That is the point you have to keep in mind. That's the way, the Indian cultural spread to temples came up, because the priests, the Brahmin priests were in the courts of the Southeast Asian kings. They advised them, to build temples and all that. So that's what the new temples and all came up. Then migrants, they built temples later. During colonial period, the traders, the laborers, they went and built Hindu temples. That's why you see a lot of temples in Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand, and other countries like, Brunei and all this. But I don't think it's in Brunei, because Brunei is an Islamic country. There's no temples in Brunei. But Cambodia, you'll find some of the Hindu temples, remnants of Hindu temples, Yeah. Anything else? I think we can call it a day. Sunday, thank you for joining, and we keep, I'll be also having class next week. Okay, next Sunday, I'll be speaking on brain drain, type of migration that is called post-colonial migration. So we'll discuss that. Okay.
Okay, sir.